Now, obviously, we did have a bigger presence last time, but don't be disheartened by the numbers. You are here making a stand against this communist, Marxist regime, this fascist regime. Yeah? Now, let's start off as controversial as possible. There are only two genders. Bruce Jenner is not a hero. Oh no, I said it, Bruce Jenner is not a hero. People who went to war and died for this country are heroes, not Bruce Jenner. In the vast theatre of human history, few principles have stood as steadfast beacons, guiding societies through the ebb and flow of time. Among these, the torchbearer of democracy, the guardian of progress, the fortress of democracy is the fundamental right we gather to discuss here today, free speech. I'll tell you why I once said, without freedom of speech, there is no modern world, just a barbaric one. When people stop talking, marriages fall apart, wars happen, and violence ensues. Not only does free speech provide the bedrock of democratic freedom, it ensures the fabric of every relationship survives. The relationship between men and women, the relationship between the people and the government, the relationship between friends. If the idea of free speech falls apart, society will crumble with it. As we embark on this exploration of free expression, I am reminded of the timeless words of Frederick Douglass. To suppress free speech is a double wrong. It violates rights of the hearer as well as those of the speaker. Those words, uttered over a century ago, resonate as a rallying cry for the enduring struggle to protect one of the bedrocks of our democratic ideals. The existence of free speech is vain if not embedded into our academic institutions. But the violations of this right do not purely stem from British institutions. The CCP soft power organisations like Confucius Institutes provide a direct link between our academic realms and the CCP, subverting issues such as Taiwan and Hong Kong. You can hear there, we don't like free speech. Really do not fucking like it. Do you know what? Their ideas are so fragile, they are scared to debate me. Any one of you, I invite you. You want to debate me? I'll have at it. Come at it. It is our academic institutions that sway and influence the thoughts of our children. They are in positions of trust, feeding them with nonsense like climate change and transgender identity. Say it with me, there are only two genders! These institutions, which have developed into culturally Marxist re-education centres, are not solely limited to universities, considering the impregnation of sexual reforms into primary and secondary schools. This is how it starts. Every communist regime ever. They implement reforms into education under the guise of inclusivity. So a lot of people seem to be under the misconception that Marxism is purely an economic belief. This can be further from the truth. All developed political theories contain beliefs ranging from cultural to social dimensions. Marx purely provided an economic foundation which liberal ideas and progressivism built on top of. Like the genus of an animal, there are many different subsections which come together to form the species which is known as Marxism. You have Marxism, cultural Marxism, radical feminism, progressive steps, critical race theory, and many more, all interconnected under a blanket of intersectionality. While Marxism may have started as just an economic vehicle, it has evolved to become much more, and quite frankly, more evil. This is what I mean when I say institutionalized Marxism, the shutdown of free speech in universities. Marxism, in the modern day, is about being the bigger victim. Which is why free speech is completely incompatible with it. Their ideas are so fragile. They know if they're blown out of the water if they encourage debate about their philosophy. But as I said, that's not the only issue your children and we as students are being subjected to. Oh shit, it's kicking off. Has anyone heard? Hold on. What are you doing? You fascist scumbags! You're on the same wavelength as Adolf Hitler! It's ridiculous! This is the state of universities! These people are meant to be highly educated! These are our future! What the hell are they on about? They dress up in masks and skirts! These are not our future! Everyone join in! Fascist scum! Off our streets! 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 Right. Let's just ignore them now, yeah? Has anyone heard of Confucius Institutes? They're named after the Chinese philosopher. Now, they play a huge part in the Chinese overseas propaganda system. At face value, Confucius Institutes provide a link between UK universities and Chinese ones, yeah? And they also teach young people how to speak Mandarin, is another thing as well, right? However, their real purpose is far more sinister. Described by many CCP members as Chinese soft power, these institutes work as an extension of the Chinese Communist Party. Yes, we can. And now, as I said earlier, they support issues such as Taiwan and Hong Kong. And you know what? We do stand with the people in Hong Kong and we do stand with the people in Taiwan because they are fighting against communism, which is exactly what we're doing in the UK at the moment. It is an example of international manipulation designed to historically revise context and propagandise what's happening in China. Many people who work at these Confucius Institutes have links to the Chinese Communist Party, and more worryingly, links to the United Front Work Department. Now, the United Front Work Department is the CCP propaganda agency. These are in our universities! They are donating to our universities in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. Is that not concerning to you? Now, there's a documentary on this called In the Name of Confucius. And many universities have tried showing this documentary, but the Confucius Institute get involved and say, no, you can't show it. Like at the Japanese National Olympic Memorial Youth Center. It's happened to so many different universities. China is having a say on how our academic institutions are run. That's how concerning this whole thing is. We're paying 60 grand to go to university to be learning this stuff about climate change. It's a theory, it's not a fact. It's never been proven true. Now, if you're doing a look into this, there's a great report on it by the Henry Jackson Society. I highly suggest that you all read. Brilliant piece of research, right? Now, another issue that points to the discontent of free speech within universities is the idea of decolonisation. A process being undertaken by 70% of UK universities. 70%! And it's being promoted at an institutional level by the QAA with a massive say over what is being taught in our schools. Now, decolonisation is a proposal that colonial perspectives and Eurocentrism is removed from academia as a whole and the criteria, yeah? And it basically says that those who've been historically marginalised should have their voices amplified over the white, straight, working class male. You know, that scoundrel who works hard to provide for his family. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Now, this is a form of centralised education. But rather than individual school boards having control over academia, the power is given to the government. This is what we see on a large scale within communist countries, not countries that are supposedly living in a democracy. We're not China. We are not China, and we will never be China. The most famous example of this happened during Prussia. During their preparations for the war against Napoleon, they implemented a new education system that would create the perfect soldier. When they didn't question orders, and had an installed sense of discipline, and would just follow commands without questioning it. Does that sound like what's happening now? The plan was to completely remove critical thinking from the equation and install compulsory attendance. Last year alone, 300,000 parents were fined for unauthorised holidays. It's your bloody kids! It's not the state, they're your children! No, it wasn't until 1902 when Rockefeller... Let's get a boo for Rockefeller, come on! Boo! He put up millions of his own money for the creation of the school board that this model was instituted in America. And the UK, as always does, soon followed. This is a plan that's been in the making for generations. I've talked about it numerous times before. Cuban Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, the Khmer Rouge, and especially the Mao's Cultural Revolution are just a few examples of Marx-inspired revolutions that utilised the students. In Mao's Cultural Revolution, they beat people who disagreed with them. Exactly what they do. They are coming for your children. It's time to stand up and fight for their rights. Now, I'm almost done, don't worry, we'll go to the next because next, right? Now, I've got a friend, right? He's going anonymously at the moment, a good friend of mine, and we call him Saeed, yeah? And he was recently expelled from university for gender critical views and anti-Semitism. What a load of bloody bollocks. Now, before he was expelled, he was pulled into a meeting, right? And in this meeting, they tried getting him to sign a behavioural contract. This behavioural contract stipulated they would not say anything that may make other students feel uncomfortable. Basically, he couldn't state his opinion at all. Another part of his contract was that he would have regular meetings with Prevent. Who knows what Prevent is? Yeah. Does anyone know what Prevent is yet? So Prevent is a counter-terrorism organisation. It was set up in response to 9/11. And it was set up to combat radicalisation by Islamic and far-right groups. Now the figures show that Prevent disproportionately focuses on far-right extremism as opposed to Islamic one. Now, I'm not sure about you, but in this country, Islamic extremism is a far greater problem than far-right extremism as it has been. There's been 11 Islamic terror groups prescribed in the past 4 years. There's only been 5 far-right ones. So why is it disproportionately they focus on far-right extremism? And what is this far-right extremism? It's if you say in class, if your child says in class, there are only two genders, you will get a visit from Prevent along with the police. Is that free speech? No, it's not. This is a fascist dystopia, and they are enabling it. A teacher at Lancaster University, Katie Alcock, risking losing a job because of gender critical views too. The local anti-fascists have filed a class action complaint against her for saying there are only two genders. You couldn't make it up. Wow, someone that's different opinion. Are your ideas so fragile? You need to get a teacher fired because you can't fucking debate. Ridiculous. Now, one more thing to them. The whole idea in Marxism is the abolition of state after you've shared out the wealth. It's called the dictatorship of the proletariat. No Marxist regime has ever done that because you forget about one thing. That's the greed of man when he has power. You never know someone's true character until you give them power. And that's why Marxism will never bloody work. And it will never work in the UK. The UK will stay free and democratic.